Alright, so went ahead and picked up some shock shafts so I can rebuild the factory ones. Also got a couple different options as far as springs. So we're going to go ahead and pull the stuff we need back off this one. Like I was saying, these are too thin. They need to be a lot thicker, and I started to build spacers for it, but for a basher, dealing with spacers and all that, it's something I had to do on my X-Maxes, and I don't like it. So it's not something I want to do to this. So putting the 6S shocks in there, for me, is not an option. Like I said, on the Mojave 4S, I went ahead and this one too. I went ahead and just changed out the spring and the shock oil, and I was good to go. And that one drives phenomenal. And the shock shafts are no bigger on the 6S line than they are on this 4S line. The shock shafts are 4 millimeters. So going to anything different for me is just not an option. So we're just going to repair what we have, and we'll go from there. So part number for the front, because they're 62 millimeters, is ARA 330706. The rears are longer, 72 millimeter, I believe. And it took a lot of searching because Arrma has 3 different versions of the Outcast. The parts all refer to each other, which kind of sucks. So what I'm going to do is, shock shaft tool is definitely a must. We're going to unscrew this nut, and then we're also going to check our valving, because how black the one with the bent shock shaft was means that these on the side were rubbing on the case. So you definitely don't want them damaged when putting it back together. One was very dirty and had black particles in it, I believe, because it was bent and rubbing for a little while there. So a shock shaft tool is a must on this. I mean, you can use a microfiber and some pliers. There's one for that one. And here's the one that's really bent. This is the one I really need to look at the valving and make sure it's not damaged. It's not got a flat spot on one of the sides, then all the fluid will just bleed out one side of it. I don't think it went far enough. Grab cleaning wipe. Trying to get the dirt that's packed in there out. We can throw our shock shaft back in. Still a little bit of oil residue in there. You can see where the spring was rubbing. Only on the one that was bent. Notice that the 4S line they're a lot beefier on the shock rod ends than the 6S line. There's actually a lot more material on it. And what I mean by material, you can see how thick the 4S is compared to the 6S with all that plastic down in there. So the 4S is literally beefier than the 6S. And then that is a limitless or an infraction. And still all screw onto the 4mm shaft. So now that we got that, we are going to have to fill the shock fluids. These are the rears, which we're going to rebuild. I also have, these are the 111mm shock bodies with the shaft and everything already built, assembled back into them for the 4S line. And the part number is Arrma 330720 is the front, and then I believe this is the rear. I didn't look it up. Let's see. Yeah, that looks like the rear. Because they are longer. Arrma 330721, which is 132mm in length. I believe the rear is 132 and the front is 111. Now I just saw these there and picked them up because I remember reading about that. Now the rear I was questioning because I didn't have my rear there, and like I said, there is so many different options for the 4S Mojave, or Mojave, the 4S Outcast, because there's so many versions. There's even the 2.5, which they don't list, just the version 2.0, but I believe they just made a bunch of changes to it. And these were, the springs were just done on these. See, that one feels good. This one feels dead. And this one feels really good. The rebound is really good on that. Where this one, you can see, is dead. So we're gonna get the rears to where they're operating the same. And then these should be the front springs, which I might just stiffen up. So I'm going to look up some shock fluids and see what I'm going to stick in there. Alright, I'm going to put some 40 in there. We're going to bleed them and let them sit a little bit. We're going to let those set up, and then I'm going to start working on the rear. We'll be right back. Alright, shocks have been sitting for about an hour. Just wanted to make sure there was no air in them whatsoever. And now what we'll do, I gotta put that piece back in too. I'm gonna actually use the other one. So we're going to snug it down, not close it though. So that's tight. We're going to back it off. I'm going to go ahead and push it down, deadhead it, and then we'll snug it up. It's funny, it travels in really fast, but harder to pull out. Just pushing it up about halfway, just rotating it, pulling it back down just to make sure there's no air trapped below the piston. And then go ahead and start this one. Oh, that's the wrong cap. That cap is the skinny one. It needs to be this one. I'll look at something. Does this one have rubber? No, there's no rubber diaphragm in these. So I'm going to add more fluid to them. That is strange. So we're going to top them all the way off because there's no rubber diaphragm in there. There's no rubber diaphragm on the top of that. Just kind of deadheads. Which is kind of cheesy. So I'm not going to deadhead it. I'm going to let it have an air pocket at the top so that it'll push it down a little just because of the style cap it's running. So I'll fill these to where the fluid is level with the threads. And we'll start this. Interesting. Very interesting. Make sure that they do the same. Now that we got that solved, yeah, these are a lot longer. Let me see. I'm going to look up to see what pound springs these are. We'll be right back. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and screenshot this. So there's the spring, 4x4 front shock spring, Arrma 8947. And if you go to all features, it gives you a spring rate. Length is 276, 70 millimeters. Stiffness is 497 pounds. So I'm going to go up to a 7.7 pound spring on the front. Arrma 330644, 70 millimeters. So we're sticking with the same length. As you see, 70 millimeters. Which is a set of Pro lines, but it's not something I want to do right now. I want to run it on the factory like I did my other one. And I need the spacers in here. So there's a big spacer that goes first, and then there's the collar for the spring, which is a little like spacer, but it's a collar for the spring. So like this, length is perfect, and this way I'm hoping I don't have to add any of these, even though it had one of these in there. I might add one because that's what factory was on the front. The rear I had to add a ton of them. So as you see, there is a little space in between there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add underneath the collar, because you want the collar to be the last one. That way the springs aren't loose. So from 5 pound to a 7 pound, 2 pounds up on the springs. And we're going to set up this one the same way. I showed this before on my Mojave on how I do it using factory parts. You can just play with your spring rates, which I feel is better, using the manufacturer's parts rather than aftermarket, because it becomes, for one, a little cost effective, and a lot of these things share the same parts anyway. Yeah, that feels much better. Now I'm going to go ahead and tape these together and mark them as 4.4, even though these are junk, because they have collapsed. So now we're going to go ahead and rip in to these rears. The fronts are done. then, like I showed before, here's the fronts are right here. All you would have to do is put your spring rates in these. They should already have shock fluid in them. They're from Arrma as well. But we're going to go ahead and pull out all these spacers. When this thing was stock, I had to add some spacers to the rear to lift up this RC. But if you watch the last couple of videos, the rear of this, for one, the front was sagging bad, but the rear of this, you see, without the two shims in there, that's how much the spring has already lost its tension from stock, which really sucks, because the more spacers you put in there, what happens is the spring just starts losing its tension. So the same on the other side, and pretty much the spacers I have in there is what the spring has collapsed to. But I think that's because you can see the fluid in there. Yep, look how black that fluid is. That's literally the plastic valving is rubbing on the side, makes that black. So I'm just opening these up, putting this in here as a protector, so I can pop these caps without scoring it. See how bad this one is. This is the whole reason of changing out your shock fluid. Oh yeah, same thing. Look at all that dirt. So it's a good thing we're changing out the shock fluid. I don't know how often you should do it. I just try to do it once a year. Not saying that my maintenance program is the best. And hopefully one bottle will fill all of these, because this was a brand new bottle and it looks like one bottle is barely going to fill all of these shocks. And we will fill these to the top, because same thing with these caps, there's no diaphragm in there. Alright, let's get these things closed up. So I'm using 40 weight, which should be the factory oil. It's got some binding issue going on. Set screw. didn't even know they had pins. So it's the other end. That has the issue. It's not the inner. I thought it was the inner ball, but it's not. It's this outer. Stuck on there and corroded. Stuck in there. So this one won't swivel left or right. This one does. That's just packed with dirt. Dirt and grease and grime. Let me get this stuff cleaned out. PV blaster in here. That's a lot of mud. Dirt is packed in the whole thing. ball. It's just packed. Bearing's fine. Now it swivels. It's awfully gritty. Huh. To stop swiveling from dirt and grit. But now it's good. And it was literally stuck. There we go. Well, that's going to run a lot smoother. There we go. Needs a lot more pressure on it. So I'm hoping just adding one big spacer will give me the preload I need. That's actually pretty good now. It's actually level. Yeah, see, the back is sitting up where it should be. And the front spring tension with the new 7.7 pound springs feels really good now. Front is off the ground. Yeah, we're going to charge up some packs and go rip this thing and see how it does. But what do you think? Yeah, that feels a lot better. Just a lot smoother overall. We got the new battery straps in there, rebuilt all the shocks. A lot of time. I'm $160.18. But there we go. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll catch you guys on the next video. Arrma tough, Arrma budget. Great RCs, expensive to maintain. But there we go. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll catch you on the next video. Thanks for watching.